You are listening to the Hire Fast podcast. In today's episode, we will discuss the fourth and final cornerstone of C.A.R.E, the letter E, environment. I will be joined by Corey Masson, who will help me unpack and align 3 powerful stories to show you how important your environment really is. You will be blown away as we transform your current perspective and how deeply important your environment is to create engagement in your business. All right, let's get it on.
The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Hire Fast podcast, a podcast aimed at educating you on hiring the right person for the right job and keeping them. Are you sick of spending precious time and energy hiring and training people just to have them turn around and quit? Then join Alan and his guests on Hire Fast as they teach you how to skillfully motivate and attract rock star talent. Now here is your host, Alan Daviduk.
Hello. I want to thank you for listening to the Hire Fast podcast. I'm Alan Daviduk. This is your podcast. It's your source for all things attracting, hiring, recruiting, staffing, our specialty, employee engagement, developing and retaining, and creating what we call rock stars. So I'm here today again with Corey Masson.
Hey, man. I love the energy you got today.
How you doing?
I'm awesome, actually. Doing pretty well.
Your hair grew a little bit.
I was just going to say I got a haircut. And, the lady bought me a nice new set of blades, so I didn't nick anything.
I want to do a quick recap just because we've spent a lot of time the last few episodes on C.A.R.E, and it's taken a while to break it down, but I got to tell you guys at home, it's so important, right? Your culture and environment and the way you operate within the 4 walls of your restaurant or business is so important. And what we're after, this is what, we've been after this whole time, is employee engagement and employee retention. And, everybody wants to talk about, attracting and hiring people, but those are the pieces that keep them, right? And while they're there, it's the things that they do. So it's so important that we continue to hit this issue. And what is C.A.R.E, right? C.A.R.E is this foundational piece of employee engagement, and that's what we're giving you. We're giving you the secret sauce. This is how we keep the employees that you've spent all this time and all this money trying to attract in. And why does it matter, right? It matters because engagement has been suffering for so long. 60% of the people, think about when you go somewhere, you go to a restaurant, you don't get a napkin, right? You go somewhere and you get food, you go out to dinner and there's no fork. Right? This is all people who don't care, right? And it just shows up everywhere. And, we could sit here and come up with 1,000 different scenarios, thousands of them. But basically, if they don't care, if they care, they're engaged. If they don't care, they're disengaged, right? It's as simple as that. And as a leader, you have to care about this because this affects the bottom line. This affects the productivity in the restaurant. And the financial stakes of this are tremendous. So as leaders, we have to be paying attention to this all the time. And then who does it impact? It impacts everybody involved with your business, especially yourself and your family and your body and your health, right? We don't look at that. We don't look at those connections all the time. But the impact is massive, And as leaders, we always want to push the blame away, right? We want to say, people suck, right? It's everybody else's fault. It's not me, right? But it's not. That's not true. It is us. Right? We drive that culture. We drive the engagement, right? People follow us. They want us to lead them. They want to come to work and love being there, but so many times a person leaves the company because of the boss.
Right.
Right? The boss is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So as leaders, it's up to us, right? We have to create this environment in the workplace. So I heard a quote, and I went and looked for it. I'm part of this group, and someone said this quote, and I was like, whoa, this one blew me away. And it's, employee engagement is an investment that we make for the privilege of staying in business. Now, you first hear that, right? And you're like, screw you, right? Why? I get that, but I think there's a lot of truth. The more I've read it, the more I say to myself, wow.
Employee engagement is an investment.
Yep. Employee engagement is an investment that we make for the privilege to stay in business.
When you open this up really quick, I'm smirking because when I go in the morning routine that I have with my daughters a couple of days of the week, Thursday and Friday, we go to a Dunkin' Donuts. Go figure. To get hash browns. Number one, they recently went up 30 cents. And I'm like, wait a minute here. How does that happen? But number two is like I don't want to give them business anymore. Number one, because of the price. But more importantly, my daughters have come to wonder if they're going to give me my receipt without me asking, and or if they're going to hand me napkins without me asking. So this litmus test that we have is like, well, do we want to come back here? Is what my kids even say. Like, is this worthy enough of our business giving it to them? Mm-hmm. Because my expectation is I get my receipt because I want to make sure I charge proper. They didn't understand that until I explained that to them. But more importantly, like, I'm paying for a service. And it is a privilege to stay in business, but you need employees to engage not only with themselves, but with the customer. So anyways, that's a well thought out quote and statement.
So I want to share something that a lot of people don't know. First I'm going to just remind people about me. I was with the Dunkin' Donut world for 32 years, but I left and started my own QSR. Mm-hmm. But there's a pandemic separate of the other pandemic that's happening in the Dunkin' Donut world. And it's there's so many locations, and one of the things that this pandemic exposed is how many poor employees are out there, right? And one of the things that's happening right now, you can at any point in time, there's over 600 or 700 Dunkin' Donuts for sale right now. And a lot of people don't know that, right? And the reason being is that a lot of owners don't understand how to get engaged employees. They don't know how to attract the right employees. This is why I left Dunkin' and I created the Smart System, because I hated what was happening and I had to change it. Or I was going to go out altogether and I was going to go do something else. Okay. But I came up with this framework. I came up with all these systems and processes with your help to fix this problem, right? So imagine that right now. There's 600 Dunkin' Donut locations for sale at all times, right? Because people want to get out. When they can't fix the problems, and the problems all funnel down from employee engagement, not finding the right people, not having the right help, not having the right leadership people. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about that. 600 plus stores for sale that's a great business, and people want out.
It is a great business. I've got some scary facts, so I'll let you keep going.
So no, I just wanted to share that, right? But that, it just goes back to employee engagement and how important it is. And we're at the final stages of delivering the secret sauce to you guys about C.A.R.E, right? So far we've talked about connection and affirmation and responsibility. Connection being, how we connect with the customers and each other. Affirmation being expressions of support and encouragement and appreciation. Mm-hmm. And responsibility, which is what we talked about the last episode, which was the level of
it's what's my role and responsibility in ensuring connection is made. How am I affirming my other team members? But again, it's the do's, the don'ts. Like, I'm responsible for this. You're responsible for that. We're all responsible together. Can we be self-guided and on task together? Keep going.
So I had a brain freeze there for a minute. So today, though, we're gonna tie it all together with environment, because when a lot of people hear the word environment, they kind of look at it like it's a blanket statement, right? And an environment, my definition of environment is the factors that create the context for engagement in the workplace. And what does that mean? It's knowledge, it's skills, right? It's tools. If we don't teach our people, if we don't give them the skill sets that they need to operate within the restaurant, they're not going to be successful. They're going to be frustrated, right? They're going to want to leave. The tools, right? If we have broken equipment, if we ask them to do a job and they don't have the right stuff to do the job, that's a problem, right? And then the resources, right? Both physical resources, things that we teach them and, different training programs, but it's also psychological, right? Mm-hmm. We have to make sure that they feel safe and they can come to us with problems and they can talk about things, right? And they don't think they're going to get berated, right? So all of these little pieces all come together to create the environment, right? The space that people want to come to work.
Right. The E for environment really is my favorite part of C.A.R.E. It's great that we have connection, we have affirmations, and we're all understand our responsibility, but environment is what we all struggle with, and that is the longing to belong in an ecosystem. I like the fact that you brought physical and psychological. I want to scare you with some couple facts here. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier about employee engagement. 61% of employees say the realities of their new job which again, 50+% of employees are going to be changing jobs this year. And literally 61% say when they went through their interview process that the job duties and discussions are different than what they actually were set in the interview. So they show up to work, six out of 10 employees are saying, hey man, that's not what I was hired to do. Transparency. Another one is ethically diverse companies are 35% more likely, again, 35% more likely to have a financial performance above the industry mean. Go back to your quote. Why do we exist? Business. And so, again, 35% are more likely to have financial performance increased by actually having diverse companies. And again, think of environment, culture, the knowledge, skills, and tools. Why do we exist? And I want to go back to the prior comment of another fact that's scary to me is 92% of employees today would consider leaving their job if offered a role at another company that had excellent reputation.
Wow.
Excellent reputation means environment. If 9 out of 10 would say, I would leave today because that company over there has a better track record. You just told me 600 to 700 Duncans are always on the buy block right now. Well, why are they selling? Because talent aren't happy. Why? Because they can't fulfill talent. Why? Because their reputation is where. So, and last but not least, I have one other comment is just over 40% of talent seekers, the future employees, say that market reputation has the biggest influence on their impression of their employer. So when you go to work, do you feel good about your employer? And does the community feel good about your employer? Obviously, this is pretty profound when you're looking at big pharma companies and stuff like that, but small town community, 3,000 employees, 3,000 people, and there's a Dunkin' on this corner or a McDonald's on that corner. Do they want to work for a company that's thriving or surviving? So again, reputation has a huge play in turnover and retention. And so those facts are great, but the reality is they're activated and they're all relative to what we call environment, where there's, the definition really is about safety standards, participation, productivity, and proficiency. Are we all safe in our job? Do we create standards that are safe for customer success, talent delight, to participation, productivity, and proficiency in our job?
Now, see, that's if you asked, I would think 7 out of 10 people what environment means to them. You'd get 7 different answers for
Absolutely.
sure, right? So I hope everybody heard, how specific the definition is and how it all comes together to create what we're calling the environment inside your operation, restaurant, any business, right? We happen to be in the restaurant business. So powerful, very powerful. Environment is everything.
Do what you do, and that's share a story of your success or something that helped us out.
I love telling stories.
I know you
Stories
do.
is my jam.
Although I don't want to go to bed to you listening to an Audible at night.
I have a friend, and he has a daughter, and she was working at a clothing store. And I can't remember, 16, 17, young kid. And the manager had somewhere to go. The truck had come in. And the store wasn't like in a retail plaza. It was in like a house that got remodeled to a store, right?
Okay.
So there was upstairs and different stuff. So the truck was kind of all over the place, the boxes, and the manager said, "Can you just get the boxes upstairs?" And I'm going to take off, and she was going to close the retail store, the clothing store. Mm-hmm. The first problem with that is the manager left the girl alone, right? She's underage. That's a problem, right? And put her in a position where she was putting this truck away, which meant she had to leave and go upstairs with stuff, and customer could just walk in, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a few problems with that, just listening to that part of the story. But here's what continued to happen. And my friend was irate when they called me about this. So the store closed, and I don't know if it closed at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever it was, right? But then, an hour later, the father, my friend, got he was concerned. His daughter's not home, and he knew she would go right from work to home.
Right.
So he tried calling her cell, didn't answer. Tried calling the store, no answer, right? So he runs to the store to see what's going on, and is she still there? And her car was there, and he went around the back, and because the actual door was like on a lock, so it locked itself. And he went around the back, and the back door was open. So he's like, this doesn't seem right? So he goes inside. She had brought one of the boxes upstairs and was on a ladder and tried to put it on the shelf and fell off the ladder and broke her leg and couldn't get to her phone.
Jeez.
I mean, there's so many problems, just listening to that story, but, to needless to say, she didn't go back there.
Right.
Right. And he wouldn't allow her to go back there. But I mean, the poor management, look at how many things are wrong in that story.
Well, what's interesting about that story, and it actually opens up the lens to the entire system of care. So first and foremost, she felt responsible in her position to do what she was told to do. Mm-hmm. But the first cornerstone of care is connection. She didn't have the quality connection to, one, with her understanding of her role and responsibility, but more importantly, to actually have spoken back to her boss that this wasn't a good idea. Mm-hmm. The leader didn't lead by design and empower her to say, no, this isn't right. Now, yes, she's only 16 or whatever her age is. The reality is she most likely wasn't equipped with, again, the ability to have conversations back with her leadership, communication back saying, this isn't right, I shouldn't be doing this. What are you thinking? Mm-hmm. Regardless if it's, she has the skills and the capability to do it, again, after hours, putting stuff upstairs, there's a safety hazard there in itself. And, one of the big things about environment, as alluded to, is safety standards. Safety isn't just about, putting a mopping, wet floor sign. It's about making sure the environment's safe. It's about making sure that the engagements are safe. And more importantly, it's also about ensuring that everyone knows how to do things. We're not just where the exit signs are, but it's I feel safe in doing this because I know I can do it without assistance, or I know how to feel safe and ask for help. Mm-hmm. So again, it's fostering a culture, and which lends into another discussion of participating in that culture. So environment is about developing a culture, and you participate in that culture. And it sounds as though she was actively participating, she was being productive in it, but the reality is she wasn't really safe in it because the leader didn't know how to do that.
All right.
That's too bad.
When I heard this story, I was like, man, there's a laundry list of things wrong here. Now, some of those aspects, I would tend to say, when you talked about the skills with her, I would, in my opinion, I would push that into environment, right? Because that's part of the environment is teaching those skills. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's keep going here with understanding more about an opportunity where, how does culture matter? Why does environment matter? And developing a system of care.
So I got another story. A friend of mine, she left work one day and she invited a bunch of us to go. Her son was playing baseball, and it was like a little league. I can't remember exactly. I don't know much about little league, but it was a little league game, and it was the championship game.
Okay.
And I'm saying to myself, well, that's weird because she was just complaining that her son quit the team, right, the year before. So I said to her, well, yeah, definitely, I'll be there. I said, but I thought your son quit. And she's like, well, he did. He hated it. The coach was so bad. The other teammates were fighting, and he would go to practice and be miserable. Right. They would go to the games and they get yelled at, and things would be thrown around all the time. It's just the place he didn't want to be.
Okay.
Right. So people started leaving. I don't know what happened, but apparently the coach quit or got fired or whatever happened, and a new coach came in. Mm-hmm. And the new coach changed everything, changed the entire environment, the entire culture of the team, put different processes in place, got back all the old players. Mm-hmm. And at that game, they won the championship. Mm-hmm. You're talking 1 year. How does something go? You say to yourself, wait, we have a problem. We have to turn the ship, right? We have to do a 360 turn. That's a 720. That guy turned it around twice. Mm-hmm. That's how fast. And in 1 year, they won the championship? Mm-hmm. That's unheard of.
So have you done this yourself, Alan?
Oh, we've done this in the restaurants, yeah.
But have you? The genesis of C.A.R.E actually is rooted in the same conversation with you. If I know your origin story and I know how you began all this, you had employee turnover, which was what percent?
Almost 300.
Okay, so that boy who's left the team was
Yep.
one of those employees who
Yep.
left your team.
Yep.
And what did you do after like hitting a wall?
Figured out a way to fix it, right?
You figured a way.
Yeah.
But who had to change first?
I did. I had to change myself.
Right. So
It all started there.
the baseball team obviously changed hands with coaches, right? But you had the reflection and the capability to change and like look inward and say, what do I want to do? Then what happened to your turnover rate? Your turnover rate went from what to what?
Cut in half.
Right. And how, so I think the numbers I heard at one point I've looked at with, before developing the system of care and looking at the SMART system was you need to hire 60 plus, had to have employees of 60.
I had to have 60 employees to achieve what I wanted to achieve.
But
in
you
the
only
restaurant.
had how many at the time?
I only had 40.
Right.
So it was like I always needed 20 employees.
Right. So
always.
You had to you actually had to turn over your team in order to actually rebuild your team.
Yep.
But you also had to change the coach, and that was you. And
A lot of similarities there. Yeah.
there is, and this story reminds me a lot of like what the pandemic employees were going through. The pandemic employees, all of us had, those who were home had time to reflect on like ultimately what they wanted their futures to look like. And during that time, there was an evaluation of what does productivity, participation actually mean for me as an employee, which puts the business owner at odds if they don't have that self-reflection, because like they just want a number. If you think an employee is just a number, are you really valuing the productivity and the participation of your employee? So needless to say, it just really reminds you of like what happens when respect is lost. Like obviously that kid left the team because there's no respect between the coach and the teammate to the coach. And more importantly, the rest of the team, he left on, might have had good friends. He was like, I can't be here. I lost respect for being here. And so, it's true that team members that earn respect and appreciate the culture have to maintain it. And, I'm glad to hear that obviously the team won the championship, but more importantly, I'm glad to know like you who created this said, hey, I needed to do a 722. And I wasn't able to do a 720 without actually changing me and actually building up a system of care.
Well, go back to the coach, right? If the coach doesn't care, look at the domino effect, right? If the manager or the operator or the owner of the restaurant or the business doesn't care, it funnels down, right?
Well, it takes time and effort on both parties to rebuild, and it is disruptive. But the truth of the matter is if you want an environment that's going to thrive, you have to disrupt it to realign it.
Love it.
Continue, man.
I got another story.
I know you do. 3, and this is story 2 is gone. So let's hear about this.
All right. So we have a girl that works for us. Her name's Catherine, but we call her Cat for short.
Yeah.
And Cat actually was a customer. Cat worked for Starbucks. She worked for Dunkin' before, and then she worked for Starbucks. And she had she filled out an application through our process because she loved coming in the restaurant. Right. She would come in. She would talk with all the girls. She literally was a regular. Now, what's ironic is she's coming to a coffee shop to go to work at a coffee shop. Right. I thought that was funny. Right. But she loved our products. She loved the people. She would have conversations with people. And then in her process, when she came to talk to me, that's what she said. And that's what I literally like it stuck out the most was that I love your environment so much that I want to come work here. And what was interesting is as we went through the process with Kat, she made too much money. And I said to her, unfortunately, I have to say no, right? So here I am, I'm rejecting a perfect candidate that's working for somewhere else, right? But I drew a line and I said, this is how we do things, right? This is how we compensate. This is our plan. If I bring you in, it's not fair to the other people that work here. So I'm going to have to pass. And man, she called me back the next day and she said, listen, I'll take the cut and pay. I want to work there so bad. I was like, whoa, that taught me something that day. That taught me how important everything we're talking about is. She was drawn. It wasn't about money at that point. It was about the culture. It was about the environment that drew her in. She took a $2 an hour pay cut to come work there for us.
It's extremely validating to what is true. Everything is contagious. So ultimately, if she came in as a customer and she saw the joy and satisfaction that the talent had behind the counter or through the drive-through or hearing the conversation on the drive-through speaker, ultimately she wanted to go there, and at a cost of what? Being happy. It costs like, am I going to be happy over here or am I going to be happy over there? And she still works with you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean,
She's amazing.
I've got to sit down and hear her story a bit, and she's a testament to what happens when you have structures in place that actively engage the environment to ultimately participate and bound the team to be successful.
Well, and I think what kind of accelerated her decision making was the average customer doesn't know what happens really behind the counter, right? Behind the scenes, if you will, when you pull the curtain back, right?
Right.
They don't really see. She knew what happens, and I think that's what drew her in. Is she said, "Listen, I've been in this environment a long time, and I know what it takes to achieve that, and I want to be part of it." And I thought that was just phenomenal.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So the wrong environment, if you get this piece wrong, it's a barrier to everything that we do. You have to get this piece right.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if you have a good widget, good product. If someone can't sell it to themselves, then why are they going to sell it to you?
So an idea for action. So what's an idea the guys at home could take back with them? So what I would say is talk to your best people, right? They're doing it for you every day. But here's the thing, though. You got to listen. You got to hear them. And I've used this before. I've talked about White Men Can't Jump movie with Jimi Hendrix, and Wesley Snipes was yelling at him, "You don't hear Jimmy," right? But there's truth to that, right? So, if you sit down some of your best people in front of you, and they tell you things that you look over, or you don't listen, or you don't hear it, or you don't want to hear it, right? But that's the point of the exercise. They're giving you gold nuggets, and you got to take it.
Yeah, we implement with SMART, with our organizations, what we call pulse checks. And, they're about well-being, they're about culture, they're about the environment, they're about all of this. And in the end, it's helping us understand more than just a smiley face, unhappy face, or a yellow face. It's about actually seeing the behaviors of the team, how things are growing, and more importantly, it helps us understand where the team is at. And if the team is happy, then ultimately the product service is going to be happy. Again, hiring new team members. So going back to the whole stat earlier, like 40% of talent seekers say market reputation has like the biggest influence. CAT was influenced by the market, the marketing of the product that was being sold on the other side of the counter. The product was the talent.
What's so interesting is that we weren't even marketing it; it was radiating, right?
No, but that's what happens. And those a call to action that we obviously highly recommend, like how you can implement something right away, is to do those pulse checks on a weekly basis and be mindful of the results. Will the numbers reflect it from sales? Will the customer satisfactions align to it? And it's all looking at from a holistic point of view and asking the team what's going on.
So this tool that we've created, we actually have a company communication tool, and we use that as the delivery method of these pulse checks. So all the time we're literally, that's why it's called a pulse check. We're taking their pulse and we're seeing what's going on all the time. And sometimes the questions are fun, and they don't even see what we're doing, right? We're asking them about, goals and different things, and just a slew of subjects that just get the engagement going all the time.
Right.
It's such a great tool, and we'd love to bring it to your environment. So we have delivered the secret sauce, right? Engagement equals the level of care, and the secret sauce is care, connection, affirmation, responsibility, and environment. We keep saying it over and over again. We've said it for 6 episodes. This is the stuff. This is the secret sauce. This is how you turn your restaurant around. And remember that comment I made about Mark Miller, the quote that he had said, that engagement isn't an employee problem. It's a leader problem. And we're accountable for the engagement of our staff. And if you miss this, it's game over, guys. It's game over. So next week, we're going to move on to the next pillar of the SMART system, attract. Okay, so because now we've done all the hard stuff. So now we're going to talk about the real sexy stuff. So thank you so much for listening today. If you'd like to learn more about the SMART system, it's a continuous improvement framework, and how it attracts, develops, and retains great people, why do you want to do it the hard way? We've done all the heavy lifting, and we're committed to getting you there faster. We want to translate and integrate all these principles, everything we've talked about, to get you results. So remember that the leaders with the best employees win every time. And if you haven't clicked subscribe or follow, please do so below so we can keep you up to date on how to hire fast. Email us at alan@getsmartsystem.com. Go to our website at getsmartsystem.com and call us at 1-888-3SMART-5. Ciao for now.
Peace.
See you guys later.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.